Welcome to the GasCast, everybody. The podcast series where we talk about greenhouse gas emissions. Today we're going to be talking about beef. And with me here today, we have to my left
Sam.
And I'm Brian.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Nate.
So, just to start off with, I assume all of you eat beef? Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Actually, nope.
Okay, tell me about that.
I'm vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
Yes. And so, part of me coming here, I said I'd go vegetarian for 6 months when I started my degree. So, I'm 4 months in so far.
How's that been?
It's actually been pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I'm discovering a lot more like substitutes and replacements for meat, which make it a lot easier. Plus it has like expanded my cooking a lot. And so it's been actually pretty easy.
Huh.
Do you miss beef?
I do. I've been missing fried chicken a lot right now. So trying to find a good fried chicken replacement has been top priority.
Interesting.
All right, so second question to bust this out. The beef, where is it? Anybody? No real answer?
No real answer.
There is no real answer.
I guess roll the outro music. So the way cattle or beef production actually produces greenhouse gases is from cows and just other ruminant animals like sheep, goats, livestock. Today we're just going to be talking about beef. They burp, they fart, and they poop. And the thing that is actually produced is methane. Now, according to the EPA, as of 2017, 10% of the greenhouse gases overall is methane, but it does trap more heat than CO2. So, coming off of that is a thing known as global warming potential, which is kind of a measure of how much heat a greenhouse gas can trap. So, specifically, it's a measure of how much energy the emissions of 1 ton of gas will absorb over a given period of time, usually 100 years, compared to 1 ton of carbon dioxide. So the base unit is the amount of energy retained by 1 ton of carbon dioxide over 100 years. So the amount for CO2 is just 1. So that's kind of like the lowest retaining heat of any greenhouse gas. So comparatively, methane is 28 to 36 over 100 years, so it's like 30 times more readily available to keep heat in. And one of our previous episodes, we were talking about nitrous oxide. That has a GWP of 265 to 298.
Shit.
And then just for reference, for the amounts that are in the atmosphere, so NO2 is by far the most effective at keeping heat in. That's only about 6% of the greenhouse gas emissions, while CO2 is 82%. So besides methane, beef production by proxy also emits nitrous oxide because of the feed that is grown to actually feed them. In a previous episode, we were talking about fertilizer and how it produces nitrous oxide. So say a grain crop is grown using nitrous oxide emitting fertilizer, that's used to feed cows. So by proxy, the more cows, the more fertilizer you're going to have and the more NO2 you're going to produce. So beef overall produces about 5.9% of greenhouse gas emissions by humans. And that was according to a study done by the UN Food and Agriculture Association, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. According to that, animal agriculture makes up about 14.5% of human emissions, and 41% of that is beef, so that makes the 5.9% value. So
you're saying cows produce 5.9% of our human-caused greenhouse gas emissions.
Exactly.
decent amount.
It's a decent amount.
Very.
So, and statistically significant because it's over 5%. So, has anybody ever eaten a meat alternative product? I have.
I of course have.
Yes.
Yeah, I had beef or just like meat. Because I've had like those chicken patties,
Mhm.
buffalo chicken patties, the vegetarian ones.
Those
Yeah.
those are really good.
Yeah, those are good.
my
Yeah.
favorite.
I have not had a beef substitute though.
I think I had a bean patty on accident once.
On accident. So most of that stuff is either like the meat alternatives. They're usually made of proteins from other plants like soy, beans, or peas. So just a little comparison from beef to beans in general. So beef requires about 20 times more land to produce than beans. And beef also produces about 20 times more greenhouse gas per gram of edible protein than beans. So that's a lot more greenhouse gas emissions than meat substitute, basically. So another thing we can do to sort of mitigate greenhouse gas emissions by cows are feeding them a specific enzyme inhibitor. So besides besides cows poop producing methane and farting, they also burp. And we can actually feed them an enzyme inhibitor to reduce the amount they burp. It's called 3-nitroxypropanol. And as I said, it's just an enzyme inhibitor that curtails the enteric fermentation happening within the cow. So they just produce less gas.
And all this methane that's being produced from cows, what you're saying is coming from their bodily functions.
Yes.
That is insane. And gross.
Yeah. So another way that doesn't have too much of an effect, we do have to take it into consideration though, is the amount of CO2 or methane or nitrous oxide emitted while transporting beef and just growing beef, not just the gases produced by the cows themselves. So at least luckily in the US, a lot of our beef is from ourselves. We do produce most of our own beef, and then the most of the other beef that we do buy internationally is just from Canada or Mexico. So luckily it's not too far away for us to get beef here.
So that reduces transportation costs and everything in the supply chain,
Yep.
basically.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about current culture and beef a bit. These past couple years, we've really gotten a lot of hype about fake meat, lab-grown meat, especially beef replacements. And you've all heard of the Impossible Burger, Impossible Meat, Beyond Meat, stuff like that. And that's just made from sequestered proteins from peas and soybeans mixed with a bunch of other stuff to make it seem like meat. So, have any of you had the Impossible Meat? I think I've tried it maybe once or twice.
I've not tried the Impossible Whopper, but I've always wanted to.
It's not that great.
It's
not
does
that
it-
great.
Does it taste like beef?
No, it just tastes like a meat imitation to me.
A meat
Yeah.
imitation. So like if you were to bite into it and then bite into an actual beef patty, there would be a significant difference.
The texture is kind of okay. The taste, it just tastes a lot different. If I wanted to replace meat, I think at this point in time, I don't think it's there yet, personally.
Okay.
I think they're a bit early to be promoting Impossible Meat and Beyond Meat so hard. I'd just rather have like a bean burger or like a regular veggie burger or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, another thing related to this that I just stated that it's been really being pushed hard these past couple of years. And one thing we can say about that is these companies are really trying to, or we think that they're trying to also take advantage of the climate change for marketing. So they're kind of advertising not as a hard solution to greenhouse gas emissions, but they are using kind of like the climate change scare to market their product. So that there's something to say about that.
You're saying that like the product of like Impossible Meat is taking advantage of like the climate change in order to sell their product, or are you talking about beef in general, or the Impossible Whopper?
Just the
Like
fake meat products in general, mostly the Impossible and like Beyond Meat, like the beef substitute companies. And related to this, there's been, well, actually in response to this, there's been more, so in response to this change in the public's view of fake meat, it's people are really buying it and accepting it and wanting it more. Have you guys seen the commercials that are just like for beef in general?
no,
They're-
I think I've
I've
meat
never
commercial.
seen those commercials. Like just general beef.
Just general beef. I think I saw one maybe for the first time like a year or so ago, and it's just a commercial for beef in
Pays for
general.
them.
Like probably the beef commission or something,
Yeah.
because it's just like a really manly, like cowboy sounding dude, just like beef. It's what's for dinner, and it's like in response to, it has to be in response to all this hype about fake meat and fake beef.
Right, because I'm sure a lot of people are concerned about the environment and what everybody's been saying about the beef industry, and I feel that's a reason why a lot of people are going vegetarian, is to combat the beef industry and their practices, and I know that they give off a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. So I guess my question for you is, are the people who are going vegetarian helping, in fact, with greenhouse gas emissions and combating climate change?
Short answer is definitely yes. As I said before, beef is only 5.9% of human emissions total, and then add some of that for the rest of meat production. So yeah, if you just cut meat out, you will be doing some service to lessen global greenhouse gas emissions.
Right. But I'm
Yeah.
sure you need a lot more vegetarians.
You need a lot. It needs to be sort of a big cultural change.
Right.
I'm not ready.
What was that?
So I'm not ready to change.
Yeah, that brings me to probably one of my final questions is, like, would you, if you were told, if it was like solid information that you believed to be true, if you learned that just if you cut out like meat entirely, let's just say vegetarian, if you just went vegetarian, it would actually help the environment a lot, would you do it? I would.
What's
I
a
d-
lot?
I'm already doing it.
Yeah. So just
Like a lot, as in like the normal aspect of just going vegetarian, or
if just like a study came out that said, if like everybody in the U.S. went vegetarian, it'd reduce like greenhouse gas emissions by like 50%, just like total. And that's not true, obviously, but let's just say that
If there was going to be a significant impact on climate change from the removal of meat from my diet, I would 100% do it. I feel like there's enough meat substitutes out there to satisfy me enough. But unfortunately, America loves their meat. And I just don't think that there'd just be not enough people willing to change meat out of their diet for the environment. It's just a sad reality, but I would 100% do it if I knew many other people were participating in like a movement as such, but I just don't think America's ready for that change yet.
Me neither. I don't think they're there yet. I don't think fake meat products are there yet either. So I always thought about this scenario, like, if suddenly it came out that eating meat was super bad for the environment, and like somehow the U.S. government outlawed the eating of meat,
Right.
just like, would I go along with it? Like, if they're just like, yeah, this is terrible for the environment, does a lot of damage, and they just outlaw it. I mean, we don't need meat anymore.
Yeah.
We have enough like nutrients and the right foods to provide for us, but
Without meat.
if they just like suddenly went and said that meat was legal, I wouldn't complain that much. I'd just be like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You saw what happened with Prohibition.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Right.
Same thing with the alcohol, guns.
Exactly. Meat is definitely heavily valued by Americans ever since we've been here. Yeah, I would totally be for it, honestly. I'm kind of already for a lot of regulations that should be on the beef industry. Have I gone vegetarian? No, but honestly, I have thought about it and do plan on trying to at least go a decent span without eating meat. Honestly, I think it's kind of important for us to like place less value on meat and like other substitutes that we can throw in for proteins and such, because the beef industry is honestly climately negative. It's terrible, honestly. It's for humane, just the treatment of animals and the environment. I honestly think it's just a bad entity. Unfortunately, a lot of Americans think otherwise, but I would honestly 100% be for the reduction of the beef industry.
Beef for?
Did I say that?
Anyway.
I would beef.
So obviously these are all really exaggerated, really out there ideas or situations, scenarios. We can all do just a little bit to help this cause. You can just eat meat, or eat beef a couple times a week, once a week. Even that's a little too low for me, man. Or just even eating beef like once a week. Those are like the small things you can do.
Well, one last question.
Yeah.
So, like, in terms of the way they're going with their policies and regulations, would you say they're starting to become, like, are they putting any regulations on, like, for example, the cage sizes for their animals, and more so environmentally speaking, policies they're going to pursue in their future? Are they more conservative, I guess, or are they more liberal? If that makes sense.
So that was a long question. Can you phrase it
Okay.
a little bit shorter?
Okay.
Sorry.
So, does the beef industry, are they pursuing healthy environmental and animal right policies, or are they going more away from that?
I don't think they're going more away from that. I think as long as they keep making money, they're going to be doing what they're doing. The only thing that'll get them to change really is just pressure from society or the government.
And I guess a follow-up question would be, in your eyes, is there enough pressure from society and the government and everybody else for the beef industry to change, or are they going to continue the practices that they're already that they're practicing?
I don't think so that much. There are other companies, not as much beef related, that are sort of merging themselves to be just like a protein company, that are doing like fake meat or stuff like that, like Tyson, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
So that was this episode of GasCast, talking all about beef and gas, as usual. So I've been your host today, Glenn, and with me to my right, I've got
Nate.
Phil.
Brian.
Sam.
All right, everybody. See y'all next time.